It's a joy to be with everyone and to come back to this august place. And great thanks to Parmaji and all the organizers of this wonderful day and all the excellencies, honorable guests and friends of yoga. As has been just highlighted, yoga is certainly not only a physical practice, although the physical exercises, the breathing exercises, the different aspects of the physical part of yoga are profound and very beneficial and excellent in their effects on prevention and even management and cure. The Vedic knowledge that comes with this tradition includes Stapatya Veda, housing conditions, includes Ayurveda, how to use herbs and plants, and different aspects that are very profound and are being more and more researched these days, showing their beneficial effects in all aspects of life. There is, however, one area which is most important that is being usually ignored and that is coming back now to being recognized as an essential aspect of yoga. And that is the aspect of consciousness. Consciousness is a very abstract reality. It is that which allows us to be aware, that aspect of ourself which makes us think and feel and experience and dream and plan. And so far it has been in the Western understanding considered almost as an all or none phenomenon, which means either you have consciousness or you don't have consciousness. But consciousness is a very profound aspect of reality which has different depth in it, different broadness, different width, and you can be drowsy, that is also a conscious aspect. You can be alert, you can be dreaming, you can be in deep sleep, you can be in altered states of consciousness, in coma, in vegetative states. And therefore, more and more we understand that consciousness has different aspects, different layers of its reality. In particular, if we just want to define it as having depth, for example, it's how alert you are. When you are exposed to a stressful situation or a demanding situation, there are mechanisms in the nervous system that make you very alert because you have to respond to the potentially dangerous and threatening situation, and you respond either by running away or by fighting, and that is included in the nervous system by activating certain parts of the brain. This leads to a very, very high alert state, but it's also very narrow because you are dealing with a very, very specific situation and you have to deal with it within a short period of time. So under stress there is very high alertness, but there is very narrow awareness. You lose actually, and this has been studied, you lose width of vision, of intelligence. Take an example. Pilots have been known, for example, when they are not well trained, if they have a little problem in the cockpit, they focus on it so much they forgot to fly the plane. And there has been accidents like this that have happened and that led all the training of the pilots to make them what we can call field independent, which means whereas they deal with a specific situation, they have to have in their awareness broader understanding. We would call this the width or the breadth, if you like, of awareness. When you want to deal with any situation, the more variables, the more aspects of the situation you can compute, you can take in your intelligence, the better your decision is going to be. And also the more alert you are, the better you're going to make in terms of coming out of it. Because if you kind of have a relaxed, broad awareness, but you are in a drowsy mood, sleepy mood, you also cannot handle the situation properly. So what you need is very high alertness, and yet at the same time, broad understanding, broad comprehension. And part of yoga, the techniques of yoga, are actually to develop this ability to have broad comprehension and yet very sharp, narrow, alert understanding. And we have done studies on this, even on pilots, who really become very alert, and there are some army pilots who have been using this in different places, different countries, where they can see there is a very sharp ability to focus, yet very broad alertness and awakening. Now, this is not just theoretical. If we study the way the human nervous system works, we find that this has implications on a lot of aspects of health and functioning. And in particular, Amarjit ji has asked that we mention something more on the level of prevention because of the NHS requirements and this celebration this year, and also wanting to save a lot of the expenses that are being faced to save life, to improve health, but also to be able to manage the health system better. And so I'll be focusing on this aspect of the yoga, which is the development of consciousness in a way that is systematic, and see how beneficial this can be on different aspects of life. In order to have something scientific, we have to know how it works. It's not just some imaginary nice thing, but something that is understandable from a theoretical perspective. The mind and psychology has an influence on the nervous system. So when you think a thought, when you have fear, when you have anxiety, a feeling or a thought has an effect on your nervous system, and that influences the part of the brain which is called the endocrine system, the neuroendocrine part, which influences the endocrine system, which releases hormones, and that can influence the immune system and the entire functioning of the body. We know now that from awareness, your quality of awareness, quality of consciousness, you can influence the mind. The mind is the psychological part which influences the nervous system. As we can see here, that influences the endocrine system, and that can influence the immune responses. We know exactly how this works now, and we have the pathways, and we know the hormones that are secreted and how they influence different parts of the body, even on the cellular level, on the digestive system, on the cells, on the immune system, the ability to defend against disease, the ability to heal for the body, healing process, the inflammatory process, which is a major problem in heart disease and different conditions. So these are the pathways. Of course, it's not the time to go into the fine details of how it works. This chart shows that what happens in a stressed situation. When the brain is stressed and there is a demand on the brain, the blood flow, rather than going to the deciding parts, to the intelligent parts, to the more human, we call it like, parts, the blood flow goes to the more old brain, which is the defense part, the place where you want to really act, you want to fight, or you want to run away. The fight and flight response, which we all know. And therefore, some parts of the brain are not being properly nourished by blood. And that's why we have seen that in stress situations, there are actually holes in the brain. I mean, the holes, of course, physically, it's not that part of the brain goes, but this is in terms of blood flow. You have parts of the brain that are not nourished. Whereas when you are in a situation of rest, there is an optimal functioning of the nervous system. So we have tried different techniques. There is in the different techniques also of yoga, there is different techniques of focused attention. Another technique, focused attention is like concentration. Then you have open monitoring, which is sitting and learning not to mind things and just to be aware of things but not to mind them. Kind of the mindfulness aspect of technique, mindfulness meditations. And then what we call the automatic self-transcending, which means the ability for the mind to settle down to a very deeper level in awareness, which is part of what is called transcendental meditation, a simple technique that allows the mind to settle down, guided by its own desire to rest, and go deeply into the self, into the inner being. It was found that this technique of transcendental meditation creates the highest level of brain coherence, which means your brain, suppose your brain is like many computers with different parts in it, different chips sitting there in the brain. If they all talk to each other, it means you have like a supercomputer that is working. But if it is disorderly, it means that different parts work differently and there is incoherence in the brain. It was shown that transcendental meditation creates a very high coherence, which leads to higher creativity, better reflexes, better awareness, deeper awareness, and even better functioning, better grades for the student. Even the intelligence quotient, the IQ, is improved, and concept learning is improved. So there are all these benefits that have been shown. There is increased physiological relaxation, and this has been compared between the different techniques, and we find that transcendental meditation has a very deep physiological level of rest, and this has been done on 32 different studies, longitudinal studies, with thousands of people practicing these different techniques. So that leads to, trait anxiety reduction, which is when you compare it to different approaches, you find that this yoga technique, which is a TM, transcendental meditation technique, has much deeper level of stress release and relaxation and rest. Trait anxiety is a way to describe stress, and the reduction in stress is very clear in this process. This is also a meta-analysis of 146 different independent peer-reviewed studies. So there are changes in blood pressure, which are very profound. The whole human physiology gets normalized, and one of the greatest problems in modern time is blood pressure, contributing to stroke, to heart problems, to kidney problems, atherosclerosis. And we see here that even within a few months of practicing transcendental meditation, there is a reduction which is very significant in blood pressure. This has led very important release for even the American Heart Association to say clearly that transcendental meditation should be used, and it is significant in lowering blood pressure and improving heart disease, and it's even more significant than certain medicines or drugs that are used without any side effects in this particular case. Something is very interesting is that, and not expected actually, that was studied on diabetes, and those who practice transcendental meditation have reduced diabetes, and even studied in coronary heart disease patients as compared to other techniques and to other programs of self-improvement.